Bicara Supply Chain, highlighting and showcasing solutions for the most complex challenges facing the industry in 21st century by our team of subject matter experts and mentors. Broadcasting every week, all year round, we will present the most up-to-date series of podcasts and webinars.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bicara Supply Chain. This is Nur Hadi House, and I am speaking now with Konrad. He is a consultant and trainer focused on operations and supply chain management, and he is based in Poland. Today's topic is the forecasting and scenario planning in the S&OP during uncertainty period. Thank you and welcome to our show, Konrad.
Hello, Nur Hadi. Welcome. Hello.
Looking at your profile where you have been working for many years in the consulting industry, I think it's more than 20 years, right? So can you please tell us a bit about yourself and how you made up with your professional career as a supply chain consultant?
Well, so as you already said, something like 20 years ago, I started as a production engineer. I was responsible, that was a different production engineer because I was responsible for the finished goods, quality of the finished goods, raw material process, and had something like 100, 120 people to manage. So all in one, we were producing some home appliances production, but for very well-known Dutch brand, but I think we don't want to have some no product placement, so I won't tell the name. Then I moved to automotive industry. I was a quality manager, production manager. I worked for tier 2, tier 1, for French, for Japanese company, and I always had a need to share my knowledge, my experience. So I started as a consultant that you can hire. And in 2008, I started to work for an automotive automotive company as a production director. That was 2008. So on January 2009, contracts for all employees were changed from full-time to part-time. Well, the company did not fire anybody during this downturn. And as an award, I say, in July 2009, the company had the highest sales ever in 20 years of its history. So I might say that I have a little experience in surviving the downturn. At this moment, I'm an CPIM instructor. I'm a demand-driven planner professional by Demand-Driven Institute. So that's my background.
Awesome. So we are talking about the COVID-19 where it impacts to the supply chain. So how do you see a current global supply chain planning in relation to this COVID-19, Konrad?
What I observe, it's two kind of companies, I would say. The first group of companies, they during even the peaceful time are managed in a way that I would call it as a chaos. So you can imagine what is happening in such a companies right now. Fires everywhere, firefighting everywhere, and everyone on the board is a firefighter. But what I also see is that some of those companies just stop. They just think a little bit and say, okay, it's not the best way to manage the business. The other group of companies are totally different. Those companies have a proper processes in place. And just to make sure, I don't claim that they were prepared for something like COVID-19. No, I can even bet that there is no company in the world that has such a scenario in the contingency plan. Okay, closing the whole continent for a few months. No, I don't believe it. But they know how to react, and they have processes in place. Let me give you some examples from companies that work in Poland. We have a company that is producing some cleaning supplies, disinfectant sprays, liquids, the increase in sales is week to week is a few hundreds %. And this is not my opinion. It's a supply chain manager who wrote it to me. He said, he wrote, we simply know what to do. Instead of doing sales and operations planning once a month, we do it every week.
Yeah.
Meeting with sales is now almost every day. We don't have enough capacity. We don't have enough raw material. So every day they simply decide about the fair share of the available products to the customers. Contacting the suppliers almost every day.
Yeah.
So another company that I can think of is producer of the different variety of pumps, a well-known brand around the world. And when we also spoke with the supply chain manager, she said, I had 3 S&OP during the 2 weeks period. So almost every 3-4 days, she need to have a meeting with the CEO and make another decision because everything is changing around. Mm-hmm. The market is closed, the supplier is closed. You cannot predict that. Okay, you cannot even take everything under consideration. So you have to react, but you have the process in place.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to jump into another question. So what kind of scenario can we have in mitigating the supply chain planning risk?
Well, all 3. What I mean, all 3? Well, what we done also with, in MPM, in our consultant company, yeah, and also what we propose to our customers, that instead of having only one scenario, prepare for 3. Mm-hmm. And it seems obvious. Optimistic one, pessimistic one, and a realistic. So 3 scenarios instead of 1. And what you need to take under consideration is, for example, optimistic scenario. How long will the lockdown last? Yeah. Based on the Korea, you can say, okay, 6 weeks. That will be very optimistic, but still, it happened. The realistic, it can be something like 8 up to 10 weeks lockdown. For the pessimistic scenario, I don't know, maybe Italy, maybe Spain, maybe United States will set up some standard. But at this moment, we can calculate something like 14, 16 weeks of the lockdown of the whole market. So this is the one piece of the scenario. Mm-hmm. The second step is answer the question. Each company needs to do this. What will happen afterwards? What will happen with demand? Will we increase very quickly to the level that we had before the pandemic, or well, that can be optimistic scenario. Another more maybe realistic, it will be that for a few weeks, 4-6 weeks, there will be very slow increase, and after that we get to the level before COVID-19. And the pessimistic scenario, for 3 or 4 months there will be no increase in sales, and after that we get a little bit higher, but we'll never get to the level that we had before the pandemic. So that's the scenario that every company should start with. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Another thing I would like to ask is, how do scenario plans support the supply chain? Can you please tell us a few examples on how this can be done?
I would rephrase the question: how scenario plans not support only the supply chain, but how the scenario plan support the company, the whole company. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in this moment, I think you also have this saying in English: cash is the king.
Okay. Yeah.
So based on whatever we have, we need to look at the cash, because it will give us the information whether the company will survive or not.
Yeah.
That's the basics. And so another, thing is maybe we'll have some artificial intelligence. Maybe we have some system, information technology, information system that will help us to validate, to check all those scenarios. If we don't have it, okay, but we need to do something about it. Maybe it will be the mostly wise Excel production system, can be, but we need to check all those scenarios. And what we propose to our customers is, if we don't have a tool, right tool, information tool, try to do some kind of a combination, because if we have 3 scenarios for when the lockdown will end, 3 scenarios how the demand will start after the pandemic, we will end up with a huge, at least 9 version of the scenarios. Mm-hmm. So it might be too difficult to analyze all of it. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to end with the analyzed, paralyzed. So what we suggest is to take the pessimistic scenario on the lockdown. So in that case, it will be something like 14, 16 weeks. Mm-hmm. And also the pessimistic version of the demand increase. So nothing for the few months maybe. Mm-hmm. And that will be our pessimistic scenario. Optimistic, short lockdown, something like 4-6 weeks. And after that, quick increase in the sales. Yeah. And somewhere in between, there will be a realistic. And after that, we need to make a plan. What kind of action for each of this scenario we need to put in place? Okay, what kind of decisions we need to make? Of course, at the last moment, okay? And based on that, we can not only support the supply chain, but also sales. We also can support HR in our companies, because that's the tough decisions. And for example, if we 2-3 months ago, we started some investment in a new production line. Yeah. Probably some companies already made this decision to stop this investment. But when we start to analyze all those scenarios, it might be that a good decision will be to invest in that production line, because during the optimistic scenario, we will need it. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the fair point. Of course, we need to look at the cash. So let's have a look at the pessimistic scenario. Yeah. And what we call in an MPM is a kind of a crash test. Mm-hmm. What is a crash test? That you take all the actions that you've planned for the optimistic scenario. So you've made a decision to invest in the production line, and the demand will not come. Mm-hmm. In other words, you've put in place actions for the optimistic, but the pessimistic scenario turned out to be the true. Mm-hmm. How the cash will end? What will be the cash flow? Well, the company will survive. If not, you need to go back to the optimistic scenario, see what kind of actions we need to postpone, we need to reject, we need to cancel. So during the crash test, we will survive as a company. Yeah. Because the crisis is just right now, at the moment. But what is more important is what will happen afterwards. And if we will prepare as a company, will the company be prepared for the upturn?
All right, perfect. This is my last questions, but still quite relevant to what we discussed in our conversation. So my question is, what are the main challenges we may have with this kind of scenario planning?
I think the main challenge is to start.
started, right?
Yeah. Furthermore, another challenge, very often, even if we talk about sales and operations planning, many companies think about the forecasting and think about the S&OP as only one number.
Mm-hmm.
And all the companies try to stick to this one number.
Mm-hmm.
And what we are telling our customers, no, not one number, but 3 different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that may be the challenge, because this is a challenge not within the company, but within the head of the top management people.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be focused on the 3 different scenarios. Of course, someone can say that it's not possible to predict when the pandemic will stop at a particular market. Yes, fully agree. But what we did in Poland, and we passed this information to our customers, was the information optimistic scenario, pessimistic scenario, mm-hmm. how they can use this for this internal planning, their internal planning. If you don't do this, I would say your forecast error will be always 100%. Yeah. Of course, you can wait until the World Health Organization will announce that, okay, in Poland it's not a pandemic anymore, but probably you will be late. You will be something like 2, maybe 4 even weeks behind your competitors. So it's better to do it yourself, even with a huge forecast error, but to do it. Another challenge is the fact that the ability to analyze such a scenario, so many scenarios. So try not to predict everything. Just a general information will be enough. Mm-hmm. And very often what we say is you have to analyze, you have to get the information. And very good example is from Korea. I think it was person number 31, as far as I remember the number, because in pandemic in Korea was quite smooth. It was something like 10 positive cases every day. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, one person was the cause of the whole pandemic in the Korea afterwards. So mm-hmm. the whole lockdown. You cannot predict such a situation. You cannot predict that at your supplier side, somebody will be in a quarantine and the whole factory will be in quarantine. Mm-hmm. But you have to take this under consideration and act during your S&OP meetings.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So thanks so much, and thanks for coming, Konrad. With continued success, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
At Bicara Supply Chain, we are committed to driving global perspective to embrace technological adaptation in improving process efficiencies. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Bicara Supply Chain. And stay tuned for the latest updates. To learn more, visit our website www.bicarasupplychain.com. Thank you for listening to us. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode.